We have Marc Price with us today. Marc Skippy Price. He was on Family Ties. From his age of 14 to 21, he played the neighbor next door. Skippy, how fun for you, Marc?
I remember.
That was a good time. It was a good time. I need to jump in on the 9/11 thing here and just mention that. Honestly, for my generation, you know, it's one of the only things I remember where I was when. You know,
yes.
I wasn't there when Kennedy assassinations and stuff. And I'm very grateful to the first responders. I want to say thank you to the first responders everywhere because, you know, the police, they take a beating and all these things.
Yes.
Good beatings, too. But the first responders were so brave and they really showed their stuff that day. And I'm so just grateful that they're there for us all over the country, and including the ones here in the Tri-Cities.
Absolutely.
Thank you to you all. My mom, growing up, was a cop.
Oh, okay.
So,
When you look at showbiz kids getting in jail and getting in trouble, I bet that you were not allowed certain things.
My mom had a gun in her purse. I wasn't about to mess around.
Wow.
Yeah. She'd come into my room and look it over with a black light, like on the detective shows, you know. Other kids would come home, you know, drunk and stuff, but my mom was there sending hair samples to the lab and Q-tipping inside my mouth with a swab.
No.
You know, police do. Yes, she was like CSI, my mommy.
Wow.
She was the real deal. Now I think it's so cool because she was one of the first women police officers too. So she fought that fight. Believe me, they weren't into it back in the East Coast in the '70s. That's when Police Woman, the TV series, was on and all that. Remember?
Yes, yes, I do.
And my mom was like one of the first police women. And now I think it's so cool, but at the time I was embarrassed. My friends would come over and they'd see the police uniform and the handcuffs, and I'd be like, "Oh, my mom's a stripper."
Oh, come on.
Kind of like she's embarrassed of me now. "Oh, your son's a touring comedian." No, he joined ISIS.
Oh dear. Okay. So yes, you are a touring comedian now, and you're going to be at Joker's Comedy Club this weekend, tonight, right?
In the Tri-Cities, starting tonight, 8 o'clock. Actually, we were there last night too. We got the party started early. And then Saturday night, it's a full weekend of fun at the Joker's. I've been coming to the Tri-Cities now. I don't want to tell you how long because it ages me, but it's been, it was the 80s, the first time I came through there doing comedy.
80s?
That's how long ago. I know.
Okay, all right, yeah.
I know it!
Yeah.
I met a young guy today. When were you born? 92, he said. He's a grown man.
Yes.
I'm calling him sir. He's born in 92. I will never get used to the fact that I'm no longer the kid.
Yeah, but I think you can still be a kid there, Marc. I think you got some of that.
I made my first movie in over 20 years. Right? People know me. Some people know me from Trick or Treat, which was with Ozzy Osbourne and Gene Simmons. It was a heavy metal horror movie back in the day. So now it's called Wigged Out. This new one I just did is called Wigged Out, and it's a kids' film. All talented kids in the cast and stuff, but it's so weird that I'm now that guy.
Well, what did you play in it? What were you? I
play the local weatherman and the host of the beauty pageant and that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
But I'm there with all the girls, and it's like I just remember when the adult would come on the set when we were kids and I was in movies and things, you know, Ben Vereen. I remember I made a movie with Ben Vereen, and he played an old grouchy guy and stuff, and he came onto the set, and that was one experience. And then I played with McLean Stevenson. Do you remember him?
Oh, yes.
Older viewers might remember him.
Yes, yes.
And he was so
Matt.
funny. He was the funniest person I've ever worked with off the set. You know, when we weren't doing, he was good too on the show. He was funny, but he would tell us stories, and he'd have everybody laughing and stuff. And he was like the greatest guy to have hanging. All those old guys were. I worked with Harvey Korman. Remember Harvey Korman?
Oh, of course.
He had us laughing. Yeah. I've gotten to work with some of the great comedians of all time.
Did you pull some material from them? So do you reuse some of that today?
Well, maybe not the exact stories, but the idea is I try to take into, put into effect a lot that I've been influenced. I've got a lot of different influences too, because it ranges from way back to Milton Berle and George Burns and those guys who I got to work with and meet and hang out with, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that old school comedy scene, you know, Don Rickles. And somebody reminded me today of a story about Rodney Dangerfield. You know, sometimes it's better not to meet your heroes.
Really? Oh boy, that just paints a picture that I don't want to know about. No, don't tell us anything negative.
No, Rodney Dangerfield. He was kind of Rodney Dangerfield. He was just kidding, really.
Yeah.
I think because he's a comic, he's an edgy comic. You know, he was also a
Yes.
big partier and everything. But this was back in the '80s, and I was just a teenager, and I was like, "Mr. Dangerfield, you're fabulous. I think you're so funny. I watch it on the Tonight Show. I'm 14 years old. I want to be a comedian like you. You know, it's such a pleasure to meet you." And he was like, "Great kid. Got any lewds?" But I think,
Oh dear.
I do think he was just kidding.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh no, he had
He
to
used to
have been.
just snap off things, I think,
Oh,
just
yeah.
to get a reaction.
Oh, of
Oh,
course.
but he got a reaction. He got a reaction everywhere he went. Yeah, he was a funny guy. So, but I've gotten to work with the old timers. But then the young set. A lot of the youngest guys today, you don't even know their names. But you know, Chris Rock and Jon Stewart and a lot of the guys that went on to become famous who are now the new guard. That's what's so funny is like Jay Leno, Jerry Seinfeld. I've opened for those guys on stage. I've toured with people who are now becoming the Catskill guys.
So you warm up and get people laughing so that when they come on, they get a few laughs, huh?
Well, that's always a fun thing. Whenever the other comedians make you laugh, that's always a good deal. Makes the whole night.
So you're traveling around. You know, I Googled you last night. And
Oh,
I
wait a
just saw-
second. I'm
well,
sorry about
yeah.
that. Oh, you mean you could look me up on Google? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes up is washedupcelebrities.com.
No,
Did you see that?
no,
you didn't see that?
no. I saw you traveling all over the country doing comedy. So I think that's great because it's really down to the people level at that point.
Well, I choose where I want to go these days, and I love Washington State. It's like a love affair for me. You know, I've come the last few years, and over the years, it was one of the first places. Seattle was one of the first places I ever went to on the road as a comic.
Mm-hmm.
And I played in Pioneer Square down there, and oh my God, I fell in love with the whole thing. The city is so beautiful, of course, but then the process of comedy and coming into a town and making people laugh and doing the press and all that. Fell in love with that way back when. And I've been coming ever since, but lately I'm really into it because I've gotten into camping and enjoying the scenic grandeur near Mount St. Helen, Mount Baker.
Oh my gosh!
I did Moses Lake the last time I was
you're
here.
maturing, it sounds like.
But really work in Oregon and Washington State.
Yeah.
And Washington State is my favorite. I'll say it right now. I travel all over the United States. Absolute favorite.
It keeps you in the West because now you live in California, right?
Yeah, which I love. California too. Christmas time, can't beat it. But I'm telling you, in the spring and the summer and the fall, this is the spot, Washington State.
Well, why don't you move up here?
It might happen. You never know.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not kidding. I love it that much. I really do.
You know,
I'm already spending a few months a year here.
Yeah, well, you were telling me before that you've got drought in California. You come up here and you've got drought, but you're working on something actually that's kind of serious about drought.
Well, yeah, but
what is
you know,
that?
now drought is everywhere, but it's more pronounced here in the Tri-Cities than it is in the West. You know,
Yeah.
right? Water is a bigger issue here.
Yes.
And it's fascinating because I started producing shows behind the camera. I don't know if you Googled any of that, but I've had shows that I've created and produced on Game Show Network and Animal Planet, TBS, all these different things. And one of them was on Showtime, and it was a environmentally friendly show called Green Collar Comedy. That was the name. And I learned about this method for growing that nobody seems to know about. And it involves no paid-for water year-round, even in a drought year, even in the dry summer months, even in the Tri-Cities. In a desert climate, could work in Las Vegas, could work in Central California, and does. It works in these places. That's the other thing. It's not an idea that could work. It actually exists, and there's installations that have been in for 10 years plus and stuff. I've gone and vetted this so that I know it works. It's steeped in science and history, and it's an amazing thing that nobody, your listeners, you probably have never heard, that if you use sand hydroponics to grow anything, and that could be your lawns. You know how many beautiful lawns we have in this part, right? In the Tri-Cities. People love their lawns in the
Yes,
parks,
they
right?
do.
And
they
now
were beautiful.
they can have them without any paid-for water year-round. And this is proven, and it's in place, and it works, and nobody knows about it. It's using sand. Did you know you can grow anything in sand?
No, I didn't. No. Well, sand here, we have a lot of our dirt, I guess, is sand, but they add water to it.
Especially here in Pasco, there's a lot of
Yeah.
sand, I'm told.
Well, this is growing in the sand, and it uses a combination of sand hydroponics, which uses 75% less water, again, this is proven and studied, than even drip irrigation, which is considered a conservative method for watering, uses that much less, 75% less. And then once you're dealing with a much smaller need for the amount of water in order to grow, 75% less, you can harvest the rainwater. And so when it rains, and people say, well, there's a drought year, we're not getting very much rain. But it does rain. It rains at least 4 inches a year, probably more here. I don't know what the minimum is, but in our hardest hit California drought-stricken cities, it's 4 inches. And that's plenty to collect it and save it and store it safely, and then you're able to use it throughout the dry summer months and into the next year when it rains again.
Wow. Okay. Who knew?
I'm serious. This is.
I know you're serious.
I would like if any of your listeners are having troubles with water, if you know any farmers, or if you're a farmer and you're having concerns about water because it's too expensive or it's not available, maybe you just can't grow otherwise, this is a solution.
And what is it called again?
It's sand hydroponics.
Sand hydroponics.
Combined with rainwater harvesting. And it's when you combine the two, you don't need to pay any water bills year round. This is proven. I've visited people, they've had their front yard, their backyard for over 10 years, no paid for water, no water bills.
All right, I better look it up because my lawn has turned
brown. You got the brown lawn, which is probably, you know, it's okay, but that's another thing. They're encouraging people, I don't know about here, but in California they're encouraging people to rip up their lawns, you know, xeriscape they call it.
Yes, absolutely.
Rocks and sand and desert tolerant plants and things. And this is not a great idea always either, because if you rip up the south-facing lawn to your house will heat up.
Yeah.
And that, then people just use more air conditioning, which costs electricity, which costs water.
Yes.
People don't realize that. You'll end up using more water by ripping up your south face lawn. You want to, if you do that, you have to do it very carefully. You can get rid of some lawn and, you know, use less water around your property by re-landscaping, but you don't want to get rid of that whole south face lawn.
Okay. Marc Price, thanks for coming and lightening up our day on this 9/11 day. Really appreciate it. And if we want to see and hear more, we go to Joker's Comedy Club in Richland
This weekend.
All right. Thank you, Marc. We're back in a moment.